go to Stu up in Skyfox right now.
Oh,
and
look at this.
Let's see what this is.
Whole neighborhood.
Yeah, this is what we were. Yeah, we knew this was here, and this is like the first chance that we're actually kind of getting a look at that real devastation. When they keep saying over 1,000 homes burned in the Palisades, this is one of those areas. This neighborhood, I would venture to say, probably 500, maybe more homes out there. As I just get wider and wider, you can see some of the homes still standing, but so many of them just flattened out here. We can bring the map back up here in just a moment, but this is off of Sunset near Alma Real Drive. That's going to be the general area, and that's also part of the downtown area there as well. But take a look at that. This is, when you talk about a brush fire and you say, oh, there's some homes that have been destroyed, I never picture anything like this. This is just blocks after blocks after blocks of that neighborhood out here, and you can just see it just goes and goes and goes. And then sometimes there is, oddly enough, there's like a structure standing or maybe a garage standing. But for the most part, I would say every home in this neighborhood flattened due to the Palisades fire. And I would venture to say also, during one of the press conferences, I did hear them talking. One of the people talking about an entire neighborhood burning, and there was no resources there. This might have been what they were talking about, because it just goes and goes and goes. But also in that same breath could you imagine being a firefighter, and even with all the resources that you could possibly have at your fingertips, how do you battle an entire neighborhood burning? This has got to be 500 homes, maybe more. This is something that I personally have never seen, and again, I would venture to say a lot of other folks watching have never seen, especially here in the Southern California area. The haze is still really, really strong, or the smoke out here, so it makes it a little difficult. Sometimes when you get that wider shot, you just think, oh, we're just looking at a neighborhood. But then when you really kind of push in, you can see every single home out here just leveled. You've got the chimneys, you've got some of the walls might still be standing, but the devastation is complete and just jaw-dropping. I'm really not playing. I have no words to describe this entire neighborhood just gone.
It really is. It's just all reduced to rubble. And what hit me the most is when you put up the names of those streets, Stu. I recognize one of the names as somebody who lives there, and I'm sure a lot of people for the first time seeing their communities and these street names, and they can identify their homes. And unfortunately, I do think that I recognize the address of one of our friends. Oh, no. And just to see this, that their neighborhood and their house is probably leveled at this point, it's just so hard to see.
Well, just like these people, we don't know what their story is, but perhaps they used to live here, right? And they've come back to see what was left, and obviously not much. But really, when you're showing us this image, you have to remind yourself, and I know I'm not alone, this is Pacific Palisades, this is Southern California, this is Los Angeles right here. It truly looks like a war zone, and I hate using these cliches and these terms we keep tossing around, like a bomb went off or apocalyptic, but there's no other way to describe it.
No. None whatsoever, and it's complete. They have a garage standing right there. That family that couple that we saw down there. I'm gonna see if I can find them one more time. We actually made a little bit of a turn, but they clearly are. This is like they made their way back into the neighborhood, and they are looking. You can see it. This is clearly their house. One of them has a cell phone out. They're walking around. They've got their masks on, but if it's not their house, it might be somebody that they know personally. But just imagine driving into your neighborhood, or anybody listening, not just you ladies. It's like you go home and all of a sudden every home on your block, every home in your neighborhood is gone. No words can really describe it, and it just goes and goes and goes and goes. I know that this is I was calling it the Commons area. Some people were calling it the Village, but now we can kind of see some of that as well in all these buildings. I'm not that familiar with this area. I don't know if that was the Gelsons or not, but there is a large building right there. Then there's all these smaller buildings and some apartment buildings. This is the devastation of the Palisades fire, and this is what we couldn't see underneath the smoke, and that our ground reporters worked so hard to just kind of emphasize, to let everybody know, like, this is what's going on. But until you kind of see a broad perspective of an entire neighborhood leveled, it really, picture's worth 1,000 words, and in this case, this is really more than 1,000 words right here.
And you couldn't get this perspective yesterday because of all the smoke that was covering this neighborhood, and it was still very dark and embers flying. But today, with the winds calm at this point, at this hour, and that clear shot, you can definitely see the devastation left behind. And it is just, again, you have no words on how to describe this. And you think about each individual home being someone's life, and memories and homes, the roof over their heads.
You know what's really interesting too is there's moments where you have a building or a business that appears to be somewhat intact, and you try to figure out how in the world is that possible. Like that, for example, all around it, right? And that goes to show how these winds are just so unpredictable, and it just takes a second for it to go one direction and then another. And I guess in this case, like that home or that structure is saved. It's just so strange.
You wonder about the construction of the material. Maybe that's a newer home or different type of material that was used, or maybe the winds just didn't blow the embers that way. But clearly, you never know also from the outside what damage is done inside. We talk a lot about the flames destroying these structures, but there's definitely smoke damage that could penetrate these buildings and homes, and it is hard to get rid of any toxic smoke damage inside these buildings as well, or inside these homes. So that's going to be another big process in terms of cleanup for people who have perhaps salvaged their homes, or businesses that have been left standing. What kind of situation are they getting into or returning to when they do go survey the scene after the fact? So a lot of questions, still remain as to how viable these structures are. Stu, thank you so much for this perspective. Of course, we're going to check back.